Hello and welcome back to the channel, everyone. It is good to have you all here and I hope that you're all keeping well. It's me, Cal, your personal pocket-sized lawyer, and today I want to teach people very quickly about domestic abuse and the safest and most effective ways to report that abuse legally and get immediate safety. This is an essential life lesson, maybe not just for you, but for someone that you love, who you suspect may be going through something like this. So let's get straight into it. Now, domestic abuse is an extremely common and extremely serious issue in the UK, and that's because it does not only encompass physical abuse alone, but also emotional and psychological and sexual and financial abuse. That's why it's not just called domestic violence anymore. It's all forms of abuse. And from the research that I've done for this video, every 30 seconds someone in the UK experiences domestic abuse. But most people never report it, not because they don't want to do it, but because they don't know how to do it safely. Reporting abuse isn't simple, it's fucking terrifying, but there is a way to get out safely and to get proper legal protection. So in this very short video, I'll explain step by step the most effective process to report domestic abuse, including what practical steps you can take, what legal action you can take, and what non-legal actions you can take. It will provide important warnings to ensure your safety, and finally, a recommended escape plan for you immediately following an act of abuse. This advice is what top lawyers need people to know. And even if this video, like I said, doesn't apply to you now, it may in the future or to someone that you know. Remember, abuse doesn't always leave bruises. It can be silent and secret, and it happens behind closed doors. Finally, before we begin, after working in family law myself, I am aware of the importance of discretion for some people when it comes to domestic abuse. And so this video will always factor into account discretion and confidentiality when making its recommendations. Okay, so let's begin now. Quickly need to be clear what constitutes domestic violence in a legal sense. So, domestic violence includes any incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, violent, or abusive behavior between individuals aged 16 or over who are or have been intimate partners or family members. That is the legal definition. Now, it can manifest in various forms, however. For example, physical abuse, hitting, slapping, pushing, or any use of physical force. Emotional abuse, which is manipulation. This is extremely common. Manipulation, threats, intimidation, humiliation. Then you also have sexual abuse, which speaks for itself, which is any non-consensual sexual activity. And financial abuse, which is controlling a person's finances, limiting their independence. And finally, controlling behavior, which is acts designed to make a person subordinate or dependent upon them. Okay, so now we understand what is abuse in all its forms. Let me tell you the immediate steps you need to take following that abuse. Step one is to recognize the abuse. You must first acknowledge to yourself that the behavior you're experiencing is abusive. This is the first and most often challenging step, but until you are able to identify and accept within yourself that someone is actually abusing you, you will always lack the determination and courage to follow through and get the protection that you actually need. So the first step must always be to accept, to understand and admit that this is domestic abuse that you are experiencing. Now, the second step you need to take is to seek immediate safety. This is really important. You need to get to a fully safe place as soon as you are able. If you cannot do that or you're in immediate danger, then you have to call 999. The police can provide immediate assistance and protection. They have that power, including removing you to safety, providing medical aid, and they can also issue what's called a domestic violence protection notice, which will physically bar the abuser from returning to the home and contacting you for up to 48 hours. During this time, the police will apply to the magistrate's court for something called a domestic violence protection order, which can then extend that protection up to 28 days. So it is really important to contact the police if you're feeling that you can't just easily get up and walk away yourself. The police have a lot of powers that are designed specifically to help you and people in this situation. Step number three then is to tell somebody. You have to find somebody, a confidant, a trusted friend, a family member, or a neighbor to tell. This is important not to face this situation alone, because in reality, this is never an easy step. And most people who are victims of abuse are too afraid or embarrassed to share the problem with someone else. And I understand that. I fully get that. But don't underestimate the power of people, especially loved ones, in helping you get through it. Right, those are the 4 immediate steps. I hope you've written them down and taken note of them to remember them if ever this were to happen to you or anyone that you know. Okay, so now you are aware of the immediate actions to take. Let's now run through the safest and most effective ways of reporting the behavior, the abuse, to the authorities. Now, your first and foremost step must be, as I said, to contact the police. Yes, that is correct. As we discussed, in emergency situations, you should dial 999. But in non-emergency situations, you can dial 101, I think it is, to report the abuse, or just visit your local police station. But before you do this step, however, make sure to collect as much evidence as you can. Now, I know that this is difficult. Gathering evidence is hard. It can be dangerous and it can be complicated, and it requires a lot of courage. I get that. I have spoken to victims about this myself, and I understand how difficult that can be. But it requires courage. That is exactly what you need if you want to make a change. So when reporting to the police, you need to provide as much detail as possible. This includes dates, times, nature of the abuse, physical evidence, for example, photos, messages, certainly witness statements if you can. They are real help. Now, the police need evidence, guys. They need it. And the more that you can give to them, the way more power that they have. That's why it's important. Now, the next step is to seek medical assistance if necessary. It is extremely important that if you are ever injured, you actually go and seek medical attention, not only for your own health, but because medical records are a very strong form of legal evidence in domestic abuse cases. They are hard to deny. They are very hard to deny. Now, if you are in need of any medical assistance but are worried about discussing the issue with anyone or making it public, then don't worry. You need to know that the medical doctors are bound by their duty of confidentiality and will not share any information relating to your story or your condition with anyone else. They are also in an excellent position, those medical staff, to refer you to the best local domestic abuse services. That's what they are trained for. Step 3 then is to contact a domestic abuse service, which I just mentioned. Now, I would strongly recommend contacting helplines and domestic abuse services such as Women's Aid or your local domestic abuse service, which can offer refuge and counselling and support with legal processes which you may wish to pursue further down the line. These services are full of people who have seen it all and they can truly relate to your position. They will know exactly how to handle the specific circumstances that you are going through and make the appropriate recommendations. I very strongly recommend this. Now, I have attached, to the best of my ability, as many of the helplines and the phone numbers and the contact details that I can for these services in the description linked below. Please take a look. They can offer, as I said, they offer refuge and counselling and support with legal processes. It's all there. Okay, so now you are aware of both the emergency steps and the secondary steps to take. Well done. Now let's move on to the most important section, which is what legal protections can you and should you apply for. This is your real protection and your lasting protection. This is a very important section that many of you will probably be interested in. It involves seeking orders from the family court to protect you or protect your family home. Now, you can apply to the court, to the family court, for several orders. Number 1, a non-molestation order. Now, this order prevents the abuser from threatening or using violence against you or your child. You can apply through the family court to obtain this order, which you can do by yourself or with the help of a solicitor if you wish. Now, if immediate protection is needed in the event of imminent threats, if that is your situation, you can apply for an emergency order without having to even notify your abuser. You can do this just by yourself if it is an emergency. And next up is another very important legal protection, which is if you're seeking to protect your family home and keep it safe, then you can apply to the court for what's called an occupation order. This order determines who can live in the family home and can physically exclude the abuser from your home and the area around it. Now, you must meet certain relationship criteria to apply for this order, however. For example, you must be married or cohabiting or parents of a child together. Now, in terms of the process for this, again, you can apply through the family court for this yourself or using a solicitor. And this is really important. If you're unable to afford the legal fees of a lawyer, legal aid is available for those people who qualify in domestic abuse cases. The requirements of which I won't be able to go to in this video because I won't be able to fit it in. I really recommend you speak with a legal aid solicitor to determine your eligibility for legal aid in this situation. Now, number 3, which you've probably already heard of and a very popular option, is the restraining order. Now, this is available to you if you seek to prevent your abuser from contacting you at all. And again, this is called a restraining order. Now, we'll do a separate video on steps to apply for this and eligibility, so subscribe to keep an eye out for that. However, this is an order issued by the court to prevent the abuser from contacting or approaching you entirely, setting a legal boundary, so to speak. A restraining order is usually made by a court after a criminal conviction, but in some rare cases they can be issued even without a conviction if the court believes it's necessary to do so to protect you, the victim, from imminent domestic violence or harm. Now, guys, finally, our last option is for those of you with children. if any of you are a direct or indirect victim of abuse. Now, this is known as a child arrangement order, and this is also common after divorce. It again can be made in serious domestic abuse cases. Now, this order is not like the above in the previously mentioned orders, in that it simply states where a child will live and when they will spend time with either parent. It also regulates the type of contact allowed between the child and each parent, such as phone contact or video or calls or visits. Now, bear in mind, the court's priority when making decisions such as this that affect children will always be the child's welfare and not that of either parent. Okay, so by now you know the emergency steps to take, you know the secondary steps to take, and now all the different legal protections you can apply for in the family court. So hopefully by now we're feeling a lot more confident in the powers that you actually have to help yourself. But for now, the crucial part is coming, which is a bulletproof escape plan. Now, as promised earlier, I'll now go through a recommended safety plan, and it is extremely important that you have a plan in place for immediately following any instances of domestic abuse, because attempting to escape without one can sometimes increase risk. And a good plan covers not only the immediate escape, but also aftercare and ongoing safety well beyond that. Now, a good plan would include the following. Number one, an escape plan. So develop a plan to leave safely. Include a safe place to go, how to get there, important item states such as ID, money, essential documents, including all of the evidence that you've gathered. Remember to take all that evidence I told you to gather. You need to, again, inform trusted individuals of your situation and plan. And also a good idea is to establish code words with them for emergencies. Then you've got technological safety, right? Which is ensuring your abuser cannot track you through your phone or through social media. So turn off location sharing, disable Find My iPhone, etc., change passwords, and consider using a different phone if possible. Also then, crucially, you've got financial preparation. So ensure that you have enough money on you, especially if you're part of a joint bank account. Remember, save small amounts regularly. Don't just take out loads of money. Small amounts may go unnoticed. Separate your finances if possible. This is important. Maybe consider opening a separate bank account in your name and take out plenty of cash. And you can also ask your bank about address shielding options which are available for abuse victims. Reporting abuse and seeking legal protection can escalate the risk of retaliation from your abuser. That's the reality. Always prioritize your own safety and follow the advice set out in this video to ensure that you are protected. Number two, again, documenting all the abuse is necessary. Keep a detailed record of all the incidents and all the abuse and the dates and the times and the descriptions, and save any threatening messages as well, like including emails and voicemails and stuff like that. Definitely seek legal advice if you can. Many lawyers offer free initial consultations, and as I said before, you may also be eligible for legal aid as a victim of domestic abuse if you cannot afford legal fees. Again, check with a legal aid solicitor or visit the gov.uk website, which I've linked below, for further information on that. All right, guys, look, that concludes our advice for today. But to summarize all this clearly for you, reporting domestic abuse in the UK involves several clear steps. Immediate safety should be the top priority, followed by seeking support from the police or from healthcare professionals, medical staff, and domestic abuse services which are designed and created to help you. Finally, of course, you've got your practical steps such as safety planning and financial preparation upon separation. Those are crucial. And that's it really. That concludes the video. If you've liked or taken anything of value from this video, please drop me a like, or maybe even consider subscribing to my channel to ensure that you've got qualified legal advice in your back pocket at all times. Remember, guys, while my content can and should be taken as reliable legal advice in general, this is not a substitute for specific legal advice to your particular situation. This is purely educational. That said, I'll see you in the next video.